right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you'll keep your computer on mute while we go through, we will have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. So welcome to this second in the series of 7, talking about biochar and its environmental impact. What a great day to be doing this today on World Soil Day. I just wanted to read a quote from Nicole Masters here. Most of you know who she is. And she says, building soil health is the foundation to our ability to weather the oncoming storms. Having healthy soils impacts every facet of society and the environment. Healthy soils have functional water, carbon, decomposition, and mineral cycles. These soils are vibrant and alive with full structural integrity. They're able to withstand heat, dry, floods, and most importantly, to rebound quickly after disturbance. I think we find quite often in our environment that there are a lot of things we can't control, but we can certainly prepare for them. And when the inevitable does hit, if we have prepared properly, then we can quickly rebound. We do know that it's a challenge to do that. There's so much information, and it also costs money to do that. And that's a challenge, especially for small producers. The amazing thing is there are opportunities from the USDA and through NRCS to tap into programs that can help make that transition to healing our soil a little easier. So we're super excited to have Candiss Williams, who is a soil expert, sitting in the throes of everything happening in DC. Here is our guest today. So we look forward to hearing from her. Shelby?
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. If you're able to, please have your camera on and your microphone off if you're not speaking. And if your correct name isn't in your Zoom square, you can right-click on that and edit that to make sure your correct name is shown. We have our tech support in the chat today as Echo support. So if you experience any problems, send him a message and he'll help you out. And then if you haven't already, please introduce yourself in the chat with your name, email, and business/organization. Thank you. Back to you, Cassandra.
All right, thank you. So we've got a full day here today, full presentation. Again, we will have time for Q&A at the end, but if you think of something and you think you might forget, throw it in the chat and Shelby will bring it back to us today. So today I'm so excited that we have Candiss here to speak with us. I first met Candiss at the biochar conference almost a year ago now, and was super impressed by not only her knowledge about programs, because anybody can get knowledge, but really her passion. After having spent, almost 2 decades at the USDA, she still has a huge passion for, healthy soil and water quality. And I think that's really key in giving us information, is having that passion, not just the knowledge. She has seen her way throughout different organizations in the USDA, the Conservation Effects Assessment Program, through NRCS, and quite a few really fundamental things that built up to what we're going to talk about today in CSP 336. Sorry about that. I got puppies in the background. Candiss has a PhD in soil science, but again, more than her academic background, I really want you to hear the passion in her voice. I want you to ask questions of her about why we have things like 336, not just what it does, but why we have that, why we need to use it, so that it doesn't go away, and then what other things might be coming down the pike. So with no further ado, welcome to Dr. Candiss Williams.
Thank you, Cassandra, for that introduction. It was a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for staying engaged with me and the opportunities that we have in NRCS. And thank you for your team for setting this up. I'm going to share now my screen. Again, I'm Candiss Williams with the USDA NRCS. I'm currently in the role as a National Soil Health Specialist, responsible for all policy and technology related to soil health for NRCS. And this afternoon, I'm going to share a little bit about NRCS just to kind of give you an idea of who we are for those who may be unfamiliar, and our role that we play under the U.S. Department of Agriculture umbrella. NRCS first began as the Soil Conservation Service in 1935 as a result of the Dust Bowl. The Conservation Service was the culmination of efforts of Hugh Hammond Bennett, who we refer to as the father of soil conservation, and the very first chief of soil conservation. In 1994, Congress changed the name from Soil Conservation Service to Natural Resources Conservation Service. Our mission is to deliver conservation solutions so agricultural producers can protect natural resources and feed a growing world. Our vision is a world of clean and abundant water, healthy soils, resilient landscapes, and a thriving agricultural communities through voluntary conservation. The key word here is voluntary. The foundations of NRCS is three parts. It's our technology, which our practice standards, our technical guides, handbooks, and other manuals fall under. The natural resources information that we collect. So if you're familiar with Soil Survey or the National Plants Database, our climate stations across the United States. And then, of course, as I said, that's key to our work is a voluntary conservation program delivery. We do not force any producer or private landowner, if you will, to participate in our programs. We want them to see the value of what we have to offer, and we hope that it's attractive enough that they would want to collaborate with us to protecting our natural resources. Under the technology pillar of what we do in NRCS technology, there will be some links shared with you that are here in the chat. We have our National Handbook of Conservation Practice Standards. It lists approximately about 180 or more different practices that address things like forestry, engineering, agronomy, or management of land resources. Producers can access these standards within their specific states. We create these standards from a national perspective, but each state adopts the practice if it benefits them or meets their needs, and they may tailor it so that way they could deliver conservation from a localized perspective. And the information for assistance can be found in our field office technical guides, and that will be provided to you. As well, our technical notes, manuals, and handbooks that cover things like planning and assessment criteria, how we go about assessing land to identify potential for resource concerns or opportunities. Designing criteria for engineering, for example, if you putting in fences or irrigation systems. And of course, we have our innovations in emerging technology. Technology changes a lot, and we try our best to keep on top of that. And so we offer grant programs, and from those grant programs and relationships with our partners and other stakeholders, we identify technology. And if something is totally new, something that we've never done before, we will develop an interim conservation practice standard. Natural resources information. Again, I'm hoping that you've heard of Soil Survey and what it has to offer. It provides guides to crop selection, land restoration, management, and use. We have the SCAN and SNOTEL sites. It provides reliable water supply forecasts and other climatic data to a wide variety of users. We have our Natural Resources Information Program, or NRI, where we collect data nationally about the status and condition and trends of soil, land, water, and related natural resources. And we use this data to do national reporting to help build on our policy. And then we have our USDA plants database. So if you're interested in a plant or a crop or a tree, and you want to get more information to see if it's suitable for your area, USDA plants database offers that information. Then lastly, which I'm going to spend most of my time talking with you today, is voluntary conservation program delivery. Conservation planning is the key to what we do. It entails 9 steps. We call it the 9 steps of conservation planning. It could be individual for the producer, or if a state or a regional focus is needed, it could be area-wide. Our conservation programs under this, program delivery provide mechanisms for implementing conservation practice standards. We offer technical and also financial assistance for producers, because we know that when they are trying something new, sometimes monetary resources are not always available, and deters them from implementing conservation. And so we do provide financial assistance. Then, of course, innovations in emerging technology through our grant opportunities and our partnerships, we offer that as well. Additional programmatic tools supported by the Farm Bill, our Environmental Quality Incentives Program, also known as EQIP, and then our Conservation Stewardship Enhancements. These 2 programs provide the resources to deliver technical and financial assistance. More on the 9 steps. I won't go through these in detail, but I will just say that we like to think of them occurring in 3 phases. The first phase is collection and analysis. A producer will go into an NRCS local office. They will communicate with a planner. The planner will likely come to their operation, talk to them about any potential concerns or existing concerns that they have or may want to address. They will collect some information, so that's our collection analysis. Our phase 2 is decision and support. Once we identify what those concerns are, we evaluate our existing opportunities, like our practice standards, to see how we can address those concerns. And then once a plan is developed and how we're going to address the concerns, we do evaluations. So when I say resource concerns, what I mean are anything that's expected, that is an expected degradation of soil, water, air, land, or animal resource base to an extent the sustainability or intended use of the resource is impaired. One is key, as we mentioned, which is the founding of NRCS, is erosion. So soil erosion and those resource concerns cover a whole gamut, which are listed here, are anywhere from, again, soil to energy, invasive species, or watersheds. Today, because I am a part of the soil health team with NRCS, it's going to be focused on resource concerns that we have a technical leadership over. And they all fall up under the soil resource category, and they are soil organic matter depletion, aggregate instability, soil compaction, and habitat for soil microorganisms. And for us to deliver in addressing these resource concerns, as I mentioned, through EQIP and how we deliver both technical and financial assistance, we do that with conservation technical assistance programs, or CTA. Again, it covers the work that we do in delivering conservation planning under those 9 steps. So again, we develop a plan, we get information on all the resources like soils, plant materials, water, and other information that might be helpful, and of course, dissemination of said information. Under EQIP, it's kind of the tool in which we are able to provide technical and financial assistance. But under this program, we're able to promote agricultural production, forest management, environmental quality as all compatible goals while optimizing environmental benefits through technical and financial assistance. So the key here is voluntary and then technical and financial assistance. Our classic program allows producers who are eligible to work with us for 10 years. So for depending on what type of practices they include in their plan, most of those practices have a 10-year maximum. Then we have other incentives where a contract can be for 5 years. And then we have our conservation innovation grants, where partners develop research or questions where they want to evaluate our practices, and producers can implement those practices under one of those agreements. Through our stewardship program, it's a way for producers who are already doing great work, but they want to just go a step further in being stewards of the land. And so this is a program that provides additional incentive on top of the great work that our private landowners are already doing. As well as that, again, we always enjoy working with our partners, and we do this through our Regional Conservation Partnership Program. We have 2 types that fall here. There's the classic, where we work with our partners to work with private landowners and communities to develop projects that, of course, conserve our natural resources. And then we have another one that's referred to as RCPP, alternative funding arrangements. And this is where we're looking at innovative technologies, things that may not already exist within our existing opportunities. So with that being said, I kind of wanted to kind of go over a little bit of exactly what we do and how we provide technical and financial assistance to private landowners. And the purpose of this series is biochar. And so the remaining slides will focus on biochar opportunities within our programs. So we have 2 existing opportunities for biochar. The first being through our EQIP and our RCPP program that I previously mentioned. And it is Conservation Practice Standard 336, Soil Carbon Amendment, as well as biochar production is also eligible for funding, but under the Conservation Stewardship Program, as it done in conjunction with the Woody Residue Practice Standard 384. I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what a practice standard looks like. This is pretty standard across all practice standards. What you will see once you get an opportunity to visit our site and see all of the technologies that we offer private landowners, there are about 8 parts to a practice standard. We define what the practice standard is about. We provide the purpose of the practice standard, and the purpose tells the producer that this practice is available to address the resource concerns that we have identified on site. We also include the condition where the practice applies, criteria for implementation, considerations. So if, criteria is something that must be done, but considerations are things like, hey, here's some other things you could consider when implementing that said practice. Then we include plans and specifications for implementing the practice, operations and management. So once it's implemented, what happens next? And then for every practice standard, we include references. And I should have said this earlier, but NRCS via our technical assistance, we provide technical assistance that is scientifically sound. And so the references provide additional information to support implementation of that practice. So for soil carbon amendment, practice standard 336, The definition, which is the first part of that practice, it is intended to be an application of carbon-based amendments derived from plant materials or treated animal byproducts. I want to note here that treated animal byproduct is defined as edible or inedible offal, blood, hides, and other rendered products. They include virtually all parts of the live animal that are not part of the dressed carcass. And so what this means is that municipal waste or food waste are not permitted as a feedstock for as a soil carbon amendment. The purpose section of the practice, again, identifies what resource concerns this is supposed to either improve or maintain. For soil carbon amendment, it is intended to improve or maintain soil organic carbon, sequester carbon and enhance soil organic carbon stocks, improve soil aggregate stability, and improve habitat for soil organisms. Now, because this is a biochar webinar series, and last year, John provided great information on biochar and its importance and to the work that we are all doing, I did not see the need to repeat a lot of that again. You probably also noticed by looking at this is that this is not an exhaustive list of all of the benefits of biochar. And one of the things about providing technical assistance, because there's a financial component, we have to be very careful about the resource concerns that are listed, because we may have existing practices that already address those resource concerns. And so we don't want to provide double financial assistance. So there are other purposes to carbon amendments that are not listed. For example, soil moisture is a great example. Plant productivity is an excellent example for application of carbon amendments, but we have at least 20 other practices that do the same. The next section of all practices, again, is conditions where practice applies. For practice standard 336, this practice can be applied under crop, pasture, range, forest, associated ag lands, developed lands, and farmsteads where there's a need for organic carbon amendment. Rangeland is highlighted in red because there are specific instances when it can be applied, in which I won't go into detail in this presentation, but with range systems tend to be very sensitive. And so as part of providing sound scientific technical assistance, we are mindful about adding carbon amendments to sensitive systems like range. So the only way 336 for these systems can be implemented, it has to be done in conjunction with other practices. There's an asterisk by developed land, and I put that there to make note that this particular land use is not eligible for financial assistance, but we do provide technical assistance for application on farmsteads. Urban is not listed. It's very new to the USDA umbrella. You might have seen a lot of mentions across USDA platforms about urban and small ag. And so even though it's not listed, we know under urban ag, urban could also be crop, it could also be forest farming. And so it's also eligible for application, to receive application. The next section is criteria. This is probably about 2 pages. I'm not going to go through every single detail, but the section of the practice standard, or any practice standard, I outlined what must be implemented. If it's not implemented properly following these criteria, it would impact whether or not the producer would receive the financial assistance. And here, in most, the first thing that will be stated under general criteria is that a site evaluation must occur using appropriate planning criteria, assessment tools, or evaluation activities. And this is phase one of that planning, conservation planning, the collection and analysis phase. Tools, I just mentioned about evaluation of the site. Again, the NRCS Conservation Planner will work with a producer. They will conduct a site assessment. There are many tools that could be utilized to do this assessment. You can find more information about them in the National Resource Concern List and Planning Criteria guidelines. And that could include anything like an infill soil health assessment, soil sampling for soil health testing or nutrient testing, or some type of other technologies that are outlined in this guide. Under criteria for general, some examples that an example or not example, but what you will see related to 336 is about soil testing prior to any application. The same consideration if you're going to provide for application of fertilizers, if you will. You want to know where you're starting before you make any type of application. So there are some minimum requirements that must be collected in the planning phase of application of 336. Sometimes, not in all standards, but in many instances, there is a subsection of general criteria. 336 does contain this. It is additional criteria for all amendments. Excuse me. So, for example, I shared with you the purposes of this practice. So, if the intent is to provide nutrients or if the intent is for plant productivity, if you will, in the same manner of a nutrient application, then 336 would not be the practice standard recommended to you. It would be 590 nutrient management. And then, of course, just with any type of amendment, you would also always want to consider application of minimal disturbance at a right time, at the correct rate, which will achieve the intended purpose. Then we will also include information about when not to apply. We're soil health, and the intent is to follow our soil health principles, one being maintaining cover, minimal disturbance, right? And so we don't want removal of crop residues to create feedstock for carbon amendments. So that is a consideration that you will see outlined in the practice standard. Do not apply amendments where to a plant community that could be undesirable or unknown. This is definitely the case that we'll see in range settings. And then again, of course, if it's an intent is for nutrient management, then there are specifics for that as well as just previously mentioned. So for this practice standard, I have highlighted here as an example here is that raw manure or biosolids, again, are not permissible under this practice. And then under the criteria, we list specific things, some examples of carbon amendments that are eligible under this practice outside of biochar, compost, residue, a woody residue, or other crop residue waste that would normally go to a landfill could be considered a carbon amendment. And then we provide criteria about the minimal requirements for said material. This is specific to compost. We use the guidelines of the U.S. Composting Council. For biochar, very similar. We use the guidelines outlined in the International Biochar Initiative. If you produce biochar and you are certified through IBI or you meet the criteria outlined in the practice standard, so certain key things that we're looking at are the amount of organic carbon, the molar ratio of hydrogen to carbon, and chromium. Again, other carbon amendments that could also be considered if if you're interested in distillation waste of residue, or like I said, wood chips, or even sugarcane or rice residues, all that are eligible, that could be what we say is state or regionally specific. The next section of the practice standard includes the plans and specifications. That includes all of the things that I mentioned about implementing that are required in order for the participant or the producer to receive financial assistance once implemented. Then the next section is our operations and maintenance section. So now you have a conservation plan, you've implemented the practice, you have a plan about how much biochar, when, where, of application. And then once you've implemented the practice, what happens next? And the operations and maintenance outlines what that looks like. And this section includes information about calibration of equipment, the inspection of the amendments, especially the inspection of the amendment after, let's say, a rainfall event. And then, of course, you want to do some type of evaluation for its effectiveness for future planning. Some tools that we have available to help the planner and the producer with implementing 336. One of them is the Atlas Biochar Calculator for the Pacific Northwest, which provides, it's a tool that provides information on the rate of application based on crop needs and to increase the desired soil organic matter levels. We also have the biochar calculator. It was just re-released within the last month or so. It is an easy calculator sheet in Excel that allows our planners to help our producers implement 336. And then, of course, there are a number of land-grant universities who are doing great research, who have already done the work to identify application rates of carbon amendments through their research. And let's see, what time do we have? All right. Just a little bit more things to consider. Again, if you produce or are aware of biochar or other carbon amendments that contain biosolids, while it's not eligible for 336, it is able to be considered under Nutrient Management Practice Standard 590. If you wanted to use mulching woody residue, because we already have a practice standard for adding mulch, the mulch must be incorporated into the soil to be eligible for 336. Also, the woody residue treatment practice standard 384 has an enhancement, 3CSP, which provides incentive to a producer who makes their own biochar. Some other considerations to think about: if the intent is only to raise the soil pH, we have a practice standard for that. If a producer has a lagoon where they collect wet manure or animal waste, the amendment 336 does not allow application to a lagoon, only to soils. And so we would encourage the producer to look at our practice standards more specific to waste treatment of lagoons. Some future opportunities: we are wanting to look at how we can integrate biological amendments as part of this work we're doing with carbon amendments, specifically biochar, maybe as an inoculant. We are also wanting to develop some enhancements that would encourage producers to apply biochar by providing extra incentive. We have a number of incentives to evaluate biochar and new technologies around the biochar space through our climate smart ag forestry mitigation practices and activities, our partnerships for climate smart commodities projects, our conservation innovation grants, our resource conservation partner programs, our cooperative agreements, and then, of course, engaging with our partners such as yourself. One such example is with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Ag Research Service, ARS. Our relationship is with Dr. Kristen Tripp, who is a lead scientist for biochar, internationally recognized, in collaboration with the U.S. Biochar Initiative and American Farmland Trust and some university partners. They are working with us to help us, not only doing outreach to private landowners about biochar, but also developing technical information for NRCS, so that way our planners can best provide technical assistance for producers who are interested in our programs. So part of this work looks to get more information about all the different types of biochars that are out there, because everyone has their own, what we call our own secret sauce to making their product. But in order for us to provide technical assistance and how much to apply, when to apply, where to apply, we are trying to characterize what's out there. So there's that effort. We are wanting to improve models so that way we can do life cycle analyses of biochar production to application to the fields and how that impacts greenhouse gas emissions as well as carbon sequestration. We have the Pacific Northwest website that houses all of this great work. And then, of course, like I said, in partnership with USBI and American Farmland Trust, developing fact sheets, webinars, providing feedback to help us improve 336, and what we call InReach, training NRCS, who are on the front lines to supporting producers who want to conserve their natural resources. The website is here. All of the information about the products from all the great work that's being done can be found at this website. I should also mention that a lot of great information on the U.S. Biochar Initiative website as well. If you are interested in engaging us or partnering with us, we meet quarterly. This is an opportunity for our stakeholders, partners, to share with us all the great work that they are doing around soil health management systems and their work with private landowners. We also share what we are doing and what we're working on as an opportunity for us to engage. If you're interested in joining us, please reach out to Carl Koch. His information is here. He's our partner engagement specialist. And at this time, I will open it up for questions. Thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to share.